So, in the context of legal rights, equality makes perfect sense because I can think of only one qualifying factor for legal rights. Can you guess what it is? Anyone?
Anyone is not.
Can you? I can think of only one qualifying factor for legal rights. It's not being a man or a woman. It's not being black or white. It's not being tall or short.
Human.
Well, even that is not strictly true. Being human is highly correlated with the quality I am talking about. But there are humans who do not have legal rights. They do not qualify. And it's not because of race or gender or anything like that. Can you think of what conditions would disqualify a person from having legal rights?
I didn't get the question actually, grammatically.
In my latest book, Romantic Idealism, The Highest Standard of Romance for a Man, by Gregory V. Deal, available on Amazon, I give an example that, I'm not a feminist. I'm also not, what's the word for if you're pro-men? I'm not a misogynist. I'm not a misandrist. I'm not against men. I'm not against women. I'm not for men or for women. I'm a humanist, if anything, right? That's the label I would use for myself. But then in a footnote, I go on to explain that that's not even strictly true. What I am in favor of, what I support, is qualities highly correlated with humanity, such as conscious self-awareness and morality. And it's possible to be human and not have those qualities, and it's possible to not be human and have those qualities. I would argue that my dog Popoke has a lot of those qualities, not as much as the average human, but some of them, and that's part of what I respect about Popoke. There are probably intelligent life forms in the universe that have those qualities to the same degree we do, or even more, and they would not be human, but they would still have what we call humanity.
Okay.
That's what grants legal rights, conscious self-awareness, the ability to choose. So if you have people with severe mental retardation, or people who are brain dead or in a coma and so on, they can no longer think, they're no longer conscious, they lose some or all of their legal rights as a result of that.
Actually,
the argument once used against black people in America, for instance, why they shouldn't be granted human legal rights and be treated as slaves, is because some racist pieces of shit couldn't see that black people had conscious self-awareness. They reduced them to the level of animal intelligence or animal consciousness. And they do the same thing with women in countries where women still don't have full legal rights. They say, well, they're like children, essentially, right? They compare women to children, and only men are the true adults in the society. We don't give full legal rights to children, right? And very few people see a problem with that, right? Because in general, we agree that children do not have full conscious self-awareness and cannot act responsibly. But the point is that they eventually grow up into adults who can, right?
mm-hmm.
So when you're talking about equality for men and women, or blacks and whites, or whoever, that's what you're talking about. Does the law, does our institutional government treat them as equals in the sense that they are conscious and responsible and capable of making their own choices? That's also the genesis of freedom, respect for the individual's ability to make choices regarding their own life. Now, equality applied is like this ubiquitous, ambiguous catch-all for everything in life doesn't make any fucking sense at all, right? Like the claim that men and women should be treated exactly the same in every possible circumstance, even where it is clear they are demonstrably not the same. Even two individuals who are the same race and gender and height will not be exactly the same. You and I are both males, but we're very different in many regards. There are things you are much better at than I am, and there are things I'm much better at than you are. There are things you enjoy doing much better than I do, and there are things I enjoy doing much better than you do. Should we be expected to be treated exactly the same way and have our lives go exactly the same way? Would that make any fucking sense to you?
So what is equality? So like equality, not what is not a fucking equality. What will make us happy?
Is that the goal? Is that the outcome, to make people happy? Is that what we're trying to do here?
Yeah, for me, it's like the goal. Like they are fighting for equality to make them happy. Like they said, like, we are not happy in the past. We torched by the men and ruled by the men, and always in the kitchen. Now we want to be
Right.
in a.
So what you're talking about there, like those gender roles that the feminists protests so hard against, I would argue this cat has a very small amount of humanity, but not much. Yeah, I know. So those are partially the result of natural differences between men and women. And by that, I don't mean like that women are genetically hardwired to wash dishes all day. I mean that the gender, right? And I don't know all the hard data on this, but is correlated with observable differences in personality and ability. And, how much of that is due to social reinforcement and how much of it is natural genetic and chromosomal differences? I don't know, but there clearly are differences, right? Even if it's just, well, men tend to be bigger and stronger than women. Okay, so does that make us naturally better suited for certain tasks than women who aren't as big and strong as us? Yeah, obviously. But does that mean that there can't be women who are big and strong or good at the same tasks that men typically are better at? No, of course not, right? So that's the difference between a generalization and a stereotype. A generalization is when you observe things that are generally true. If you've known 1,000 women in your life and 900 of them were small and weak, and you've known 1,000 men and 900 of them were big and strong, you might start to form a generalization about men and women, right? And that'd be very rational to do, right? And if you were going to meet a man or a woman after that, you would assume, oh, he's a man, that must mean he's probably big and strong, because 90% of the men I've ever met have been big and strong, right? That's a rational conclusion to form. A stereotype is when you start applying that generalization before you have the chance to observe. And you start to assume, well, all women must be small and weak because that's what I've been told, right? And then you meet a woman who isn't small and weak and say, well, that's wrong, obviously, because you don't conform to the majority stereotype of how women are supposed to be. Oh, a woman who likes working on cars? No, that's impossible. It doesn't fit my idea of what a woman is. Right? It doesn't allow for exceptions. It takes a generalization and applies it as an absolutism. And absolutisms only really work on like the fundamental levels of the principles of science, like mass and force and so forth. That's the only place you can really have an absolutism, something that is 100% true all the time. Everything else is just what we generally observe to be true based on those absolutisms. What am I trying to say? I'm saying where the feminists go wrong is in trying to act like there is something wrong for women and men choosing to be different or naturally acting differently and having different outcomes in how their lives go, because they are different in the same way that two individuals are different, and therefore their lives will go differently. And it's a very strange and scary communist totalitarian idea to try to form like some kind of utopian society where everyone is forced to be exactly the same, because otherwise it wouldn't be fair, because we're not exactly the same. And that's great. If you can celebrate the various strengths that different people have, what they're good at that sets them apart from other people, and find a way that they can use those strengths and advantages for the benefit of everyone. I benefit from you being good at things or enjoying things that I am not good at or don't enjoy. And hopefully you do the same for me, right?
Mm.
And that's why here at the Caliban Retreat Center, caliban.net, you've noticed, you've been here longer than anyone else, but even the people who've only been here a short time have probably noticed I have a very strict, non-authoritarian stance with the people who come here, right? Like there's a general expectation, of course, if you come here as a volunteer, we want you to help, we want you to contribute in some way. There's a general sense of like how many hours we expect you to work, but I have never once demanded that anyone do any particular type of work, right? One, because it's not my job to tell other people what they're good at or what they should be comfortable doing, right? And two, that would eliminate the possibility of emergent types of value I didn't anticipate. Like if I said, okay, everyone who comes here has to do construction work for 4 hours a day, then what if somebody shows up and they have a lot of graphic design experience? It turns out they can do some graphic design, like someone who's designing a book cover right now, right? Right, but I said, no, she has to do construction work because that's what everyone does here. All volunteers do 4 hours of construction work. Even if she would be really shitty at construction work and would hate it the whole time, and instead she could be doing something she'd be much more valued at, like designing a book cover. Or alternatively, what if I said everyone has to design a book cover for me? That's how you have to contribute here. Most of those book covers would be shit, right? Because most people don't have graphic design experience. Right? Yeah. So not only would I be getting less valuable output, but also people would not enjoy themselves as much here if I tried to micromanage and tell everyone what kind of value they should be contributing, right? Because we're not the same. We're good at different things and we enjoy different things. And that's up to you to figure out what that is, because I can't possibly tell you. I can suggest things. I can have discussions about those things.
So what is your response to the people like, what you are, for example? That if maybe she never said that, but it was my feeling about her, that said, we are the same. Always.
I would say, have you ever met a person in your life? How are you arriving at the conclusion that we're all the same? That's wishful thinking. That's you wanting it to be true. Because in your mind, that sounds good to say, we're all the same. We're all God's children, equal and identical, and because that would greatly simplify life, wouldn't it? If everyone were exactly the same, if we were fungible, to use an economics term, if everyone were like dollar bills, $1 bill is supposed to be fungible with any other. Like it doesn't matter which one you have because they're all exactly the same, right?
Just because, like, I love to say my judgment. Correct me if I'm not true. I think that they want to generalize thing or say we are the same because it's just easy.
Yes, it would greatly simplify life if that were true.
For the exceptions, they want to be responsible for the difference. So, if you say this is apple, and this is apple, so it's easy to only one word for all.
Having individual preferences or discrimination is like the most offensive thing you can do to people who think this way. Whether it's like, well, you know, what if I don't want oatmeal for breakfast? What if I want steak and eggs? Well, that's too bad. Everybody eats oatmeal for breakfast because that way it's fair and it's exactly the same for everyone. Oh, what if I don't want to marry this girl because I'm more attracted to this girl? Well, too bad. It's not fair to this girl, right? This is how incels think. Like men who can't get laid to save their lives. They think it's like, it's not fair that women aren't attracted to me. Women should be forced to be attracted to me. Right? That's a very communist way of thinking, right? Like, well, you know, maybe you should work on being attractive if you want to convince women to sleep with you, right? This is how they think, right? Like, well, women should just be sex. They should just be attractive because it's not fair that they're not, right? It's like any form of competition or hierarchy or preference or discrimination or prioritization is like so terrifying to people who think this way. But that's where all the beauty in life comes from. All art is like subjective prioritization of what the artist considers valuable. Why did you choose to paint this part red and this part blue? Because you decided that was better that way, right? You found beauty in it being arranged that particular way and not some other way, right?
Yeah.
Why do I write the words in the specific order that I do in the books that I write? Because I found that more beautiful and more meaningful than the alternative. Right? And some other writer will have some other different preference for how they arrange words on the page, right? And some other painter and some other musician and some other filmmaker. That's all art is. It's like you projecting your subjective preferences for beauty and meaning out to the world and seeing if anyone agrees with you enough to consume your art.
Okay, so first copy.
Okay. Yeah. But what if the way you brew coffee does not match my subjective preferences for coffee, which tends to be true, by the way, because you make really shitty weak coffee.
No, I mean, no, not this actually.
Yeah, but it's not really that strong for you, I guess.
Well, it's strong enough.
Yeah,
I like strong coffee, but that's okay. I won't make do with your shitty ass weak coffee. Because I'm allowed to have my own preferences. This is America, goddammit. Land of the free.
So, when you get like what women don't have right now?
What don't women have now?
What don't women
Like what rights you mean? They like
rights?
or
What's right?
Okay, so yeah, what started this conversation
I want
was
to say about the Western country,
Yes.
not Saudi Arabia,
legal rights.
Viet country,
Right.
not Iran with Islamic Republic, something like normal Western country, France, Britain, US, Canada, like we know them as a normal country. What still they don't have?
Okay, what started this little tangent I'm on is we were saying like, okay, so even in the West now where women tend to have equal legal rights, we could maybe nitpick some things like, well, what about the right to abortion and so forth, right? But in general, most people would agree that in the West, women have equal legal rights to men. But then you say, okay, well, how come there's still a wage gap between men and women? Why do men still tend to earn more than women? Or why do more women tend to stay home and cook and clean and more men tend to have careers? So obviously they're not equal. Okay, but those aren't legal issues. Unless someone is legally preventing women from having careers or forcing them to stay in the kitchen all day or forcing them to have lower salaries, those are not legal issues. Those are just the result of human choices. And you could argue that maybe they're the result of prejudices and social pressures, like women don't feel comfortable having careers, they feel obligated to cook and clean, or they don't feel comfortable negotiating for a higher salary or something. All of those could be potential causes, right? Okay, those aren't legal issues though. That's just human behavior, and sometimes human beings are shitty or wrong, or maybe more women just prefer to be homemakers. And like, are we saying that they shouldn't have that preference? Are we saying there's something wrong with you if you want to be a homemaker? Should we be shaming them for that? Or should we just respect their right to choose whatever life they want, even if it's not one we would personally choose?
But they can not be if they want.
Yeah, as long as the option is there.
And there is the consequence to be, for example, not a mom at kitchen and be a worker doing 8 hours, and your husband be in the kitchen. Like in normal country, women have the right, have right to do whatever they want, such as not working for less salary. Like, okay, if I get less salary than women, I stop working.
Yeah. So when you say something like that, if you say something like that, women should have a legal right to make as much money as men, then what you're saying is whoever
hour and same job and same equality.
What you're saying on a practical level is that anyone who offers a salary to a woman that is less than what a man makes should go to jail. Essentially, right?
Me?
No, if you're someone making that claim.
Yeah.
Right? So, in other words, any jobs that would have been offered to women at that level can now no longer be offered. That's what you're saying if you say that women should have the legal right to be guaranteed to make as much money as a man. So you've just removed jobs from the job market if you're doing that. Right?
Yes.
And the same thing you're telling women. What if there's a woman who would be happy to work for $20 an hour, but another man is making $25 an hour? And so you're saying, sorry, I would have offered you a job for $20 an hour, but I'm not legally allowed to because I'd have to pay you $25 an hour and I can't afford that. So I can't give you a job. And if you try to take this job for $20 an hour, you will go to jail too, because it's illegal for you to work for that wage. Because you have to be guaranteed to have the right to make this arbitrary amount of money that we've established, right? That's what happens when you interfere with the market. A better question would be, why would employers of any kind, whether it's small businesses or big corporations or individuals, why would they be targeting women to offer lower salaries to specifically? And if you could do that consistently, like I run a small business for book publishing. So if all my labor could be 20% cheaper if I only hired women, doesn't that give me a pretty big incentive to only hire women? I want to save 20% on labor. Why would I ever hire a man? Unless the man could do the job 20% better or more, right? But all other things being equal, unless I just am sexist or something and hate women, Why wouldn't I want to hire the labor that's 20% cheaper? Right? So that doesn't even make any sense. Like in the long run, the things that will eventually, that's how a market works. That's called market equilibrium, right? That eventually, if women were truly consistently cheaper to hire and could perform at the same level, then more and more people would just be hiring women to save money, right? Can you find a flaw in that argument?
Can you say it slower?
If it were really true that women were consistently making less money than men for the same type of work and the same value of economic output, like, so this is excluding the possibility like that the man has 10 years more experience and is better at the job, therefore his time is worth more or something. But two people applying for the same job, same level of experience, same level of skill, same productive output, one is a man, one is a woman. For some reason, the woman is 20% cheaper. Which one am I going to hire as an employer? I want to save money, so I can hire the cheaper option, right? So if that's true across all sectors of the economy, wouldn't we be saying a lot more employers be looking specifically for female employees just to save money?
Yeah, I got it, but I have a question with the long women's vision. Like, why my salary is less?
Why is my salary?
Why is my salary less?
Good question. There are many reasons why it might be less.
What?
Maybe they have less experience in a particular domain. Maybe they don't perform to the same level. Maybe they don't negotiate very well for higher salaries. Again, aren't those all part of the salary process? Don't those all have an effect on how much you end up getting paid? Are there some areas where women are paid more than men?
There is.
I don't know. I have to assume that there are, probably, right?
Probably there is. No.
So why aren't we complaining about those? Why aren't men saying it's not fair that women make more than us in this particular sector of the economy?
So can I say, like, if you are intelligent enough, I don't care you are men or women.
I don't care if you are a man or a woman.
If you are a man or a woman, that I want to somebody make this cup for me as good and fast as possible. So I give the best salary to the best quality and fast.
Right. You have to realize that for consumer goods like a cup, the consumer generally has very little information about how it's being produced or who is producing it, right? I have no idea where the fuck this cup came from. But that had no bearing on my decision to purchase it. And you know what mattered to my decision to purchase it? Did I like the cup and how much did it cost? That's it. I'm not the person in charge of the manufacturing of the cup. I'm not the one who has to figure out how to make millions of them at a price that makes sense where they can make a profit and distribute them to people like me who end up using them to drink coffee out of, right? Maybe they hire all men, maybe they hire all women, I don't know. I'm not a cup manufacturer. It's not my job to solve those problems. Someone else already did so that I could buy this for a few dollars. Thank God for capitalism. So that I could do that. I don't have to think about the logistics of manufacturing cups. I can just buy a fucking cup. Someone else will figure out how to make them.
So, but you get you have capitalism just in my vision. You have the capitalism because of your army. As soon as you lost the United States Army, you get back to socialism. Because,
explain that reasoning, please.
Yeah. The U.S. started by saying no to the King of Britain.
Yeah.
So they get what is this?
Guns, muskets.
Musket, the gun?
Yeah. That was an old-fashioned gun, musket.
Yeah. The musket, the shotgun probably, and it was like this. And they started to fight. And after that, they started to fight, and they became an army, probably.
An army.
And they wrote the Constitution of the U.S. and everything. And it was not after that, even a second, that they feminists in the US, people of the US, that no, we have the Constitution, now America is safe, so we don't need army. The guarantee of the capitalism in the US, the capital of the capitalism actually is US, I think. The US.
What role does the national army have to do with upholding capitalism?
Okay.
It's to defend against foreign
Defending the
threats.
Constitution and defending to let
Right.
you be free.
But there are two types of threats. Either threats from outside the country, like if England wanted to invade America and take it over again, which the army would hopefully defend us against, or threats from your own government, which the army does not defend you against. If anything, it supports those.
The society's responsibility.
The army does what the government tells it to do. So if the government wanted to institute socialism or totalitarianism of any kind, it would be the army enforcing that, not defending us against that.
No, you mean the army cannot defend you from the government?
The army's job is to follow the orders of the government.
Yeah,
So if the government itself is the threat, the army would not be the ones defending us against them.
Exactly because of that.
But that's socialism, when the government itself becomes the threat. That's what you're talking about. That's what would cause us to lose capitalism in a free market if the government started taking over the market. That's socialism.
Like you mean you have a national army and you have a American army, like all of you have a gun in your house?
The only thing that prevents totalitarians in the government from taking over is the individual's refusal of that. If there are enough individual people saying, fuck you, we won't accept that, then the government can't do very much because it still exists with the support of the people, at least at this point, right? So if there are enough freedom-loving patriots with their own muskets to say, no, we're still a free nation and we will not give in to totalitarianism, then there's still some level of freedom in America, still probably more than anywhere else in the world. But it's not the army defending that. It's the individual spirit of liberty that was most highly concentrated during the American Revolution, and which has probably diluted a lot since then, but in many ways has also spread out in pockets to other parts of the country, such as here in Armenia at the Kalaman Retreat Center. Which is why we say we're a little America within Armenia. It has nothing to do with the politics of America. It's about the spirit of America that once defined it. We're an American colony in Armenia in that sense, that we are cultivating the American spirit that values freedom and liberty above all else and refuses to sacrifice that principle, regardless of where we are in the world.
Gracious. Nice.
Nice.
I never think like